Hi, I'm Mr. Rowley. In this class, you're going to be reading lots of different types of writing. So in this video, I want to explain a few different text types and the terms that help distinguish them from each other. First, we want to talk about the two categories of narrative text and informational text. A narrative just means a story. So any text whose primary purpose is to tell a story is a narrative text. So think of the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a narrative text. An informational text is just like it sounds. It's a text whose primary purpose is to communicate information. So suppose you want to fix your car and you have a book that helps you do that. That would be an informational text. Now, in determining the category that fits the text best, remember, think of the primary purpose of the text. You could have a little bit of information injected into something that is primarily a narrative text, but it's still a narrative text. And likewise, suppose you have a car manual that tells you a quick story about what happens if you don't change your oil. You still have an informational text, even if it has a little bit of narrative in it. Again, think of the primary purpose of the text. Fiction just means something that's made up. So typically fiction is going to be a narrative text, but it means that it's not intended to be a true story, at least not literally in the way in which the events are portrayed. The alternative is nonfiction, and a nonfiction text can be a narrative or it can be informational. It just depends on whether it's true or not. In other words, did the events happen? Now, keep in mind that there's always a little bit of fiction injected into any autobiography. Somebody telling his life story is bound to shorten some things, maybe invent a few details. But again, you're looking for primarily, is the text true or invented? Fiction and nonfiction. Fiction's invented, nonfiction is true. Essay is another type of writing, and essay is a really broad term, but it essentially means a piece of writing in which you're trying something out. It's written in paragraphs, and there's a specific topic addressed. I think it's interesting that the word essay actually means trying something out, an effort to perform or accomplish something. So sometimes an essay shows the writer's thinking through a particular idea or process. And there are lots of categories of essays. Two big categories are expository and persuasive. Expository means that you're explaining something. It's intended to inform or describe something, whereas a persuasive essay is actually trying to change your opinion about something. Personal narrative essays get a lot of attention in school, and in a personal narrative essay, that's a story typically, that's an essay in which you tell a story about something that's significant that happened to you, and then talk about what was significant. Sometimes that conclusion about what was important about the event can occur at the end as part of your conclusion. Sometimes it can be kind of folded into the story as the events unfold. And sometimes it's just implied by the events you describe. The reader is able to tell exactly what was important about that to you. There are lots of other essay types here too. Comparing and contrasting is something probably you've written about. You've probably written that type of essay in your history class. The literary analysis essay gets a lot of attention in schools too. And there are a lot of other types too that probably you've seen a little less often. I have book review on here as an essay type also, and strictly speaking that's a different category, but some of the same things that you're doing in other types of essays you'll do in a book review too. The key difference between a literary analysis essay and a book review, well, there's several important things, but remember that a review, you're trying to help your reader determine whether or not he or she wants to read the book, and you don't give away the ending, whereas in a literary analysis essay, you always want to talk about the ending and analyze the meaning of the work overall, particularly with regard to the ending of the book. And then the other two big categories that I'll mention are prose and poetry. Prose just means writing that occurs in paragraphs. And examples of prose would be essays or short stories, and even newspaper or magazine articles. And it's also used just as a contrast to poetry. And I'll save poetry for another video. But poetry is a really broad category of writing. It typically does not occur in paragraphs. You have lines and stanzas. And often with poetry, it's really about the sound of the language and what the writer is doing with language itself, rather than simply trying to get information across. So I hope those terms are helpful to you.